Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today for our session, Become a Graphic Designer in 2021. If you haven't seen me already, my name is Julia Druniak. I'm one of our volunteers here at Metro DC ATD Virtual Conference. And I just want to, put it out there. If you have any questions while, Chris is presenting, if he doesn't know the answer, I don't know the answer, I'm going to go ahead and get those questions answered for you in some way, some form, now, later, eventually, but soon. So feel free to ask it or use the chat. I'll have that up and be monitoring that as well. So we're actually really excited to have Chris Syracuse with us today. He is a talented learning experience designer. He uses his background in visual communication, graphic design, and technical writing to create user-centered experiences that are effective and engaging. He channels his passion to his work at the Learning Camel and wears many hats volunteering with Design by Humanity. Hope I got it right. A design education nonprofit focused on all topics regarding equality, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism. So thanks for joining us today, Chris. I'm going to put down my screen and let you share yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Julia. All right, so invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. In the time of the ancient Greeks, these were the 5 canons of rhetoric. In other words, they're the basic elements of communication. And I'm telling you this so that you know right away from the very beginning that style and delivery were always core components of communication. So the way it looks was always important, and it's not just about making things pretty when we talk about graphic design. And that fourth one, memory, is pretty important too. You see, writing hadn't quite caught on yet. Socrates, in the time of the ancient Greeks, Socrates was going around saying stuff like, to know is to know that you know nothing. And Plato was like, dude, that's so dope. Can I write it down? But Socrates wasn't in a hurry to adopt the technology. He felt that memory would start to atrophy when we could write everything down. And it's a good thing he didn't live to see the TI-83 graphing calculator, right? So he also thought it would ruin communication by freezing words in time and eliminating the possibility for new arrangements of words. And that's because writing was kind of a hassle at the time. Papyrus, octopus ink, and a decent scribe didn't come cheap. Fast forward 100 years and we can bang out, or fast forward a few thousand years rather, and we can bang out 100 words a minute on these bad boys. Which is why excellent verbal and written communication skills is on every resume and job description. See, society in the time of the ancient Greeks was described as an oral culture. That means that when they experienced the world primarily through spoken words. So if they wanted to abstract, say, the idea of a tree for communication purposes, they would rely on the sound of the spoken word tree, and that elicited in their mind all the characteristics of a tree. Eventually, though, they were transitioning into a written culture, which means that soon they would rely on an arrangement of letters to get that same job done. Today, we live in a visual culture, which means that when thinking of trees, we're most likely concerned with the way that they look. And the easiest way to get that across is to show and not tell. And just like writing technology was catching up as the Greeks transitioned to written culture, contemporary graphic design tools aren't exactly as difficult as they used to be. So basically what I'm getting at is don't be like Socrates, because look what happened. He died. No, but seriously, Plato defied his wishes and wrote everything down, and we are still talking about these old dudes today. So if you don't know what we're looking at, this is Adobe Illustrator. And I like to spend my time hanging out here whenever I can make an excuse to play around in Illustrator and get paid for it. And I guess this is probably a good time to tell you a little more about myself. I made my way into the field of instructional design by first stumbling around in graphic design for a while. And because of that, I have a special place in my heart for great visual communication and learning. When I'm designing or developing learning content, jumping back and forth between Illustrator and Storyline, and just quickly drawing up a character or symbol that can help me get my point across is not only critical, but it's also kind of my favorite part of the process. So let me first just take a minute to describe what I mean by visual communication. So, and hopefully I'll be able to do that without mentioning the exchange rate on pictures to words, because I think the popular expression on how many words a picture is worth is a little bit misleading. The goal is to use both. And the way that we interpret images really lends itself well to using both images and words. So think about your favorite movies. The characters don't walk around describing everything they're doing, right? They don't say things like, I'm having a conversation with my friend, but I'm feeling pensive and there's clearly something on my mind. No, that would be a terrible movie. Instead, we take advantage of the layers of communication there. The words and the characters speak, or the words the characters speak and the expressions you see on their faces come together and they allude to another layer. And that's how you end up getting so much information in a motion picture that you can knock the thing out in like 45 minutes, even though the book is like 500 pages. So now the final piece here is pattern recognition. And a picture is basically a puzzle. So when presented with a paragraph of words, your first reaction is more than likely going to be, what does this say? And with words, that's a pretty simple task. You just start at one end and you read to the other. And if it's well written, it makes sense. And we have the same response to pictures, but it can be a little more challenging to figure out what they mean, because if you think about it, we're a lot more lenient when it comes to gaps in visual communication. So you wouldn't be fine with just like skipping words in a sentence if you were to read a paragraph and every third word is missing. But if I showed you a picture of a lake with a sunset and I don't detail every single ripple in the water, my cat says hi, and I don't detail every ripple in the water, you're not going to call that a typo. You still get the point. And so that's part of this transition into visual culture, is that the way that we experience it is a little bit less critical. And that's all right. That's a good thing. It helps us keep things a little more abstract. But what if I showed you this picture of a sunset? Pretty cool, right? It's kind of like those sentences where you can kind of jumble things up. And as long as you keep the first and last letter of every word, it still makes sense. But keep in mind, this picture takes a little bit of mental power to understand. And it helps a lot that I primed your brains by saying picture of a sunset. Had I not done that, maybe this one's a little bit easy, but maybe it might've been a little bit more difficult to figure out what this is if I hadn't been saying the word sunset, and now I show you the picture. And side note, if you're unfamiliar with what priming is, check it out, and I promise it will completely blow your mind. Anyway, where was I going with this? All right, so, okay. So what if I show you this picture of a sunset? Wow, it's breathtaking, right? I could spend all evening here, and that's not what we want our learners to do. I mean, this is a lot of information. So in an instant, your brain is full of all this color and value information. Whether you like it or not, you're processing the depth and texture information of all of these elements on the screen. And especially when it comes to this picture, there's some like JPEG loss in this. So the pixels are making it like even harder to figure out. So all this is to say it matters exactly how much or how little information you include in an image. And generally, when we talk about adding images to e-learning, it's for engagement. A lot of times it's just a representative picture so that we've got something to look at, just something to have it there on the screen, so our learners don't get bored. And that, thinking of it that way can be a real hindrance. And it's a big waste of, it's a waste of an opportunity as well to communicate. And there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes, obviously, you're developing things rapidly. You just need to get something on the screen. But I always try to be as intentional as possible with visual communication because, again, it's just so powerful. So to that end, I think there are three major things to keep in mind with visual communication. The first is pattern recognition and cognitive load. Reusing elements across your designs gives learners a sense of cohesiveness. So, like, for example, these trees all have the same colors and the same shadows and the same basic elements, basic shapes. And that sense of cohesiveness, they don't have to keep adjusting to new styles. Imagine you're reading a book and it keeps switching between first, second, and third person narration. And then there's some random accents thrown in there. And so you just have to keep up, and that's exhausting. So using similar colors and shapes like this is kind of the same as choosing the voice when you start out writing a book. And it can make it a lot easier on the learner. It saves up a lot of, working memory for them to process the things that you want them to learn. The second is to play to the strengths of an image, which again is information economy. Strike a balance with how much information you show them. Add enough detail to make your point. And the third is just the inverse of number two. Showing less information can be a really cool way to get the problem solvers turning in their head. Because like I said, this is a puzzle. So something like this, depending how much information you give them in the beginning, this is a problem for them to solve. They look at it and start taking it apart and they say, like, what is this? What are the shapes? Oh, that's a sunset. And then the next response is, why am I looking at a sunset? And then you get into the metaphors and all the other powerful things that an image can do. So I know that a lot of graphic designers like to use graphic design tools like Canva because they're a lot simpler. And there's nothing wrong with that. Canva works, and design is all about making decisions based on your constraints. But I just think that Illustrator is a lot more fun. And for me, it's actually a lot faster. And so I think maybe there's some resistance to diving into the deep end with bigger software like the Adobe Suite, but they're actually not so scary. And I think that having something like this on your resume, you can tell people that you have graphic design skills to bring to the table when you're developing e-learning. And I think people are afraid to say that when it comes to Canva, which is all right. I would say you're a graphic designer if you work in Canva, but definitely having these tools under your belt gives you a little more confidence. And so that's kind of what this session is. I like to just spend some time in Illustrator and take apart some graphics. And I'd actually, at this point, invite anyone who wants to join in. If you have Illustrator on your computer, you can launch it and follow along. And I will actually be working through a graphic design workflow. And I'd love to take questions. So if you want to just get into Illustrator right now and use this time as a chance to just they are, yes. Use this time as a chance to just get questions answered, or really just have a chance to get familiar. That's the goal of the session. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
It's okay. Right. Thank you, Chris.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close these out so that we can see the opening screen of Illustrator. And let me just get a pulse check real quick. Is there anyone in here who wants to follow along?
If you want to follow along, go ahead and use your reactions. Give the thumbs up reaction saying you're following along, like myself. If not, it's always good to watch someone else do it. You can make us be your monkey and dance. So
yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to, let's see. Oh, awesome. I've got Sarah following in Inkscape. That's always cool. Yeah, actually we have Sarah Hill in here who follows these presentations along and works in a free design tool called Inkscape. And she helps figure out how these things how you can do these same things in Inkscape. So if you don't have Illustrator, direct questions to Sarah. Yeah, no problem at all, Sarah. Totally get it. To buy time. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is hit Create New. And Illustrator gives you this, Illustrator gives you a bunch of presets to make it easy. And I use these all the time. Even if I don't want to make something for an iPhone X, I'll just grab the iPhone X because I'm so impatient. I just want to go in and start putting things together. 99% of the time, I'm not even exporting it to the full size of the canvas. So for this one, I'll choose iPhone X because I can update it later. And I'll take a look over here at some of the details we've got. And the newest version of Illustrator is very simple when you create a document. You get your name. So I'm going to call it Healthy Remote Work Assets, because I'm going to make some assets for a healthy remote work poster or design. And then the next thing you see is the width and height, and it's in pixels, but you can change that to anything that you want. I don't feel like making a design that's yards right now. The color mode is RGB. This is one of the most important things you need to look at when creating a document. CMYK color is for print, and RGB is for digital spaces. Most of the time for e-learning, we're going to be creating for digital spaces. So I'm going to choose RGB color, and I want to make sure the raster effects are set to high, 300 PPI. And that's it. And if you don't see those settings right away, they're under advanced options. So I'll hit create. And now a blank canvas is always really scary to start out with, but that's not what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to just nab some free graphics and customize them for yourself. But before we do that, that's exactly what we're looking at here is the canvas. This is called an artboard. And so you want to try to work inside of the artboard, although you can use any of this extra space outside that you want. There are 1,000 ways to export your designs through Illustrator. This is a tool, just like any other tool. You could use the backside of a hammer if you wanted. You can get things done a lot of different ways. But today, we're going to use the artboard to export everything that's within the artboard, and anything that ends up in the gray space is just going to be like Scratch work area. So the first thing I want to do is set my artboard up. So I'll press Shift O, or I can just click on the artboard tool here. And if I point at it, it shows me the keyboard shortcut. And so what you'll notice now is that the difference between graphic design tools and a lot of other tools like word processors that you're probably familiar with on a daily basis, or even like if you notice, like when you design in PowerPoint, when you click on one of these tools, it populates on your mouse. So you can no longer just click wherever you want once you have one of these tools selected. And the difference between Illustrator and say something like PowerPoint is that once you use the tool, it doesn't switch back to your mouse. You have to choose this mouse tool, the selection tool, or V. So you always want to get in the habit of switching back to the selection tool so that you don't start destroying things. So I'm going to choose my artboard tool, and I'm going to make a few more artboards because I want to have a few designs. So I'm going to move this one to the left, and then I'm going to hold down Alt, click, and drag this to duplicate it, because an artboard is like any other object in Illustrator. So I'm going to duplicate it 3 times. And actually, for those last 2, let me show you a quicker way. I can Shift click to select both artboards, and I can hold down Alt and drag to duplicate both at the same time. So you'll notice that these tools have a multitude of functions. You can hold down the keys to modify their functions. And these are just things that you learn over time. It can be a lot to try to remember it at first, but it really starts to speed up your workflow, and you get to the point where you can really just make something in Illustrator quicker than you could find it searching the web. And that's why I like to use Illustrator. So I'll go ahead and resize these because I actually want them to be more square, and I can do that just by dragging the bounding box, this little handle on the bounding box. And I can also resize it by coming over to the properties panel and choosing an exact width and height value. Let's say I want them to be perfectly square at 1000 by 1000. You just enter that in there. I'll switch back to the selection tool. And it's important to know how to get around the workspace. You can do that by zooming and panning. So to zoom, you just hold down the Alt key and scroll. If you don't have access to a scroll wheel, you can use the zoom tool here, and you can click or you can Alt click, and it will zoom in or out at your location. So to pan, you'll hold down the space bar and you get this little hand. You can just kind of move it all around. All right. So let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow, because yeah, I don't know if, I know we've got at least one person following along in Illustrator, so I'll try to keep a normal pace so that I don't bore everyone. All right. So I mentioned that I want to get some graphics to start with. So what I'll do, the way that I like to do that is there are lots of free asset libraries available on the web. And these are not like something like, say, like Noun Project is great, but you have to attribute it. You need to buy an account if you want to use it without attribution. Or, you know, definitely don't just go and like Google search an image and pull it straight out of Google, because then you're gonna deal with infringement. So what I like to do, oops, there we go, got my beautiful sunset picture. What I like to do is use undraw.co. And there are plenty of libraries like this. There are Humans by Pablo Stanley, but I can share some of those links later if you'd like. And Undraw has a truly open source license. It says it right there on the front page, that you can use any illustrations in any project, commercial or personal, without any attribution or cost. So this just saves you a whole bunch of stress of like worrying. And so they have a lot of, it's primarily for web design, but usually you can find something that suits your needs. So for this project, I'm going to want to do remote work. And if anyone has any suggestions, like what does remote work mean to you? You can throw that in the chat, and I'll add that to one of these. I'll use one of those assets instead. So I'm going to start looking some up, and feel free to give me some suggestions. So let's say the most important thing probably is taking breaks. So I'll search take break. Nothing for that one. So let's try, sorry, I'm typing so bad today. So I'll try walking around. So I like this one. Full disclosure, I already knew this one existed. And then when I get to this one that I like, I'll choose download SVG for your projects. I want to choose SVG over PNG because the SVG is a scalable vector graphic. The PNG is a graphic which once was an SVG and has been baked into pixels, and it's permanently like that. It's made in a set number of pixels, and if you change it, the pixels just get expanded and to the point where you can see them eventually. The cool thing about vectors is they are just a set of equations that tells Illustrator what to make. So no matter what you do with them, they will always look full quality. You will never be able to see the pixels. So I'll choose download SVG. And then I'll also do 30-second commute. So let's see. So which one do we like for commute? Let's see. Maybe like a laptop. Here we go. Here's someone walking to their laptop. So I'll choose download SVG. And then, yeah, let me throw the link in there just in case. That link is undraw.co. And in Undraw, you can also choose this little color. It's pretty neat. You can preset the color that you want your designs to be. But we're going to work on color palettes in a minute, so I'm not going to set that up. So then I'll choose, let's see, messages, I think it is. There we go. Mobile messages. I like this one because I like to do something with this design that we can make this guy feel like he's overwhelmed by mobile messages, which I don't know about you, but I definitely I have like hundreds of notifications, and I sometimes don't read a notification for like a week. It will stay in the notification bar of my phone. So let's see, what else? Walking around. So we got take a break. So we got startup life. We got mobile messages, and let's try. Let's just stick with these three for now because I think I'm moving a little bit slowly today. So once you've got your assets downloaded, they're going to be in your downloads folder. I'm going to get rid of that extra artboard. So once you've got your assets downloaded, you can come over to Illustrator, and there are, like I said, there are lots of ways to pull them in. You can just drag and drop them, and it will open up in a new window. But what I want to do is actually place them. So I'll go to File, Place, and then I'll navigate to my Downloads folder, and then I'll select all of them, and I'll just hit Place. And you'll notice that now I've got this neat little image accompanying my cursor. And I can click anywhere to drop that image. And if I click and drag, I can predetermine the size of the image. So I'll drop each of these onto my canvases, my artboards rather. And you'll notice that when I click them, they all get this outline all over them. They're highlighted with this weird blue color. And what that weird blue color is telling me is that one, they're all separate objects which are grouped together. When I click any one of these objects, it selects them all. That means they're grouped. And it also tells me what layer these are on. I only have one layer in my document right now. And that layer's indicator color is this same blue. So just to keep things organized, I'll add a few new layers. I'll come down to the bottom of the layers panel and click create new layer. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost my closed captions. I'll come down to the bottom of the layers panel and click create new layer twice. And you see now I have two new layers, each with their own indicator color. And the way I can move things to a new layer is by using this little dot at the right side of the layer panel. So I want to get each object on its own layer. And let's see, I want this object on the top layer. I'll want this object on the first layer, this object on the second layer, and then I'll move this one to the third. And I can just drag this little dot and drop it at the dot location on that layer. So I mentioned that these objects are grouped together. And that's really important because if I expand this layer and I expand that group, you can see that this vector graphic is just made up of like hundreds of little shapes. And this is where Illustrator gets really fun. So Nobody had to go in here and draw, this perfect silhouette and, perfect plants. Like, you can really just make it piece by piece. This one right here, this item right here looks like it's a tip of a flower. If I show and hide it, you can see it's this flower right here. So that's how vector graphics are constructed. Each piece is only going to be one color, and they're stacked on top of each other, and you can just do some really cool and creative things with it. And it really kind of feels like crafting with construction paper. The more you get into it, the more you realize it's less about like artistic skill and flair, and more about just like creative problem solving. Like, what is that object? What type of shapes is it made out of? If you've ever done a tangram puzzle, I don't know if anyone knows what tangrams are, but like my elementary school teacher used to make us do these a lot, and I'm pretty sure that's like why I love this. All right, so for this first one, I mentioned that I don't think you should have too many details in your image. You should just have exactly as much. So the power of an image is that when you talk about something, you can include the image. Oops. The power of a design is that, thank you, Julia, is that you can include an image to show really just the subtleties, the nuance of what you want. So I like that in this image, the person is kind of casually strolling. If I say, take breaks, it's important to take breaks, then the power of showing this image isn't just to show, well, this is what it looks like when you take a break. It's to show like, just go for outside, go for a stroll, get away from your computer. That's what we mean by taking breaks. But I don't know what this sign is, right? So this is a pre-made asset, and I don't want to give the idea like go take breaks, and trespass. So I'll go ahead and remove that sign. And this is the power of being able to develop your own graphics. So the first thing I'll do to do that, to get into this group, is I can double click to enter isolation mode. Once I'm in isolation mode, I can select these objects individually. So then I'll go in and I'll just select all the components of this sign. And there's a lot of them. So I'm going to shift click each one to make sure I select all of them. And I'll just use Alt Scroll to zoom in and get really close on this little elf face. And then I can just hit delete, and it's gone. And my graphic is perfect in seconds, and I didn't have to spend another 45 minutes searching the web for like person walking, but without a sign. So that one's good. I'll leave that one as is. So now let's say we want to show a commute. Let's see, what can we? Well, hold on. I don't have anything prepared for that, so I'll come back to that one for a second. Or in a second. So I mentioned groups, right? So you can double click to enter a group, but if you really want to do a lot to an image, you'll want to take those shapes apart. And then I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll get to like what it looks like when you're developing the asset from the ground up. Was just Googling them? Oh, tangrams. Yes, please do. They're really fun. All right, so I want to change quite a few things about this image. So I'm just going to go ahead and ungroup it because that's going to be the quickest way to get there. I don't want to have to keep going in and out of isolation mode. So I can right click on it and choose ungroup. And I can also find that from the object menu, group and ungroup. And you'll notice that that's a common theme with Illustrator, is that you can find one thing from like 10 different places. The idea with Illustrator is that it's a tool. Like I mentioned, you can use a hammer, the backside of a hammer, if you really want to. But it's made to lend itself to however you work. So you develop your own workflow as you go. If you can memorize the hotkeys that you need, and you can rearrange the workspace the way that you need it. You see, I've got the essentials menu here. So you can click up here and choose any other layout. And like, for example, if I'm designing for layouts, it's going to give me a whole different set of tools. It's going to give me a lot more items. So I'm going to go back to essentials because this is all I really need to see. So now I've got this object ungrouped, and I don't want the flowers. I'm going to delete the flowers. But I want this person grouped into one piece. So I'll highlight him by dragging an arrow over him using my selection tool. Then I'll right click and group. And then the same thing here. I'm going to highlight these, and I'll hit, I'll go to object, group, Control G. So now you see I've got them grouped together in the layers panel, and I want to make it like he's being overwhelmed. So I want to change the size of them. So I'll bring him right about to the middle, And then I'll drag this corner handle and resize it, but you notice it gets all wacky. So I need to hold shift in order to keep the proportions constrained as I resize it. And this is a common theme. Please, if you're designing pictures anywhere, if you're resizing things in PowerPoint, please hold shift. We can see even a pixel of resizing problems. So now I want to resize the messages. I want to kind of fill them up in the background so they're overwhelming him. So I'll hold down, I'll put them right in the center, and I can actually hold down Shift and Alt if I want to resize from the center and keep everything centered. Cool, but there's one problem. He's behind the messages, I need him in front. So again, there's a few ways to do it. I can right click on the picture and I can hit Arrange, Bring to Front, or I can arrange them from within the Layers panel, because that is exactly what the Layers panel is. It's what's on top of another thing inside of the program, the same way it's like if you're arranging paper on top of another on your desk. All right. Now, so let's see. For this one, let's say I want to, and this is where it gets really cool. Let's say I want to make it look like we're taking a break at night. I don't know about you, but I work like half the time I end up working like in the middle of the night, because it's just too easy to put the work off until like 7 p.m. and then work until 5 a.m. But so I want to create a moon. I want to create a crescent moon. That's like the universal symbol for nighttime. So the way I'll do that is I can come up here to my shapes. Right now you see a line, but if I right click on it, I can get the ellipse tool, or I can press L for ellipse, for lips, I guess. And then hold down Shift and I'll drag a circle. So that holding down Shift constrains it into a perfect circle. I'll switch to the selection tool with V, and I'll Alt click to drag it into a new location. And you can already start to see that I've got this crescent moon shape if you highlight where both of the shapes are. So what I'll do is I'll select both of them. I'll come to my properties panel. And down here in the Pathfinder, there are these neat tools. I can use click to minus front to punch out the top shape. And I've got a moon. And then I'll use this little arrow on the bottom to rotate it around like it, just like that. And then maybe make it a more reasonable size. Cool, so now it's nighttime with a strange colored moon. And we'll get to the colors in a minute. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out what I can do with this one. Let's see, I mean, we've done pretty much everything. All right, let's, All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't think of anything cool to do with this one. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to see changed on this image? How would this image be more representative of a commute for you? Do we want to have maybe the person moved a little bit further away? We'll get back to that one. All right, so for now, what I want to, walking downstairs. All right. All right, actually, that's a good idea. Okay, so let's make some stairs. So stairs, they're evenly distributed. That's going to be a pain in the butt, right? Like if we want to create all those little steps, it'll be annoying. We'll have to sit here and evenly space them by hand. We won't. I'm just kidding. So what I'll do is create one step, then another step. Let's see. And I just want to line it up straight at the edge of this first one. And if I zoom in really far, and it's pretty hard to see because of the colors of this, so let me change the colors. All right, so now you can see as I move it, this little intersect line shows up. It snaps it right into place, showing me when I've got it in the location that I need. So now I can just hit Control D. Oops. I need to use Alt drag and move it to the location and then snap it right into place. And then I can just hit Control D to do it again. So I can just keep hitting Control D to make more steps. So once that's all there, now let's say I didn't do it that way. Let's say I kind of just like moved them and they're kind of all out of whack. Well, I can get them into place by highlighting them all and selecting Align, Distribute horizontally, Horizontal Distribute in the Properties panel. This is available in pretty much every tool. If you go in PowerPoint or in Storyline, Drop down from the arrange. I think it's in the arrange menu, arrange, align, distribute horizontally or vertically. This will save you just like so much stress of sitting there tediously moving things around. So horizontally distribute them. And there you go. Now I've got a set of stairs. Now I'll group them together and we're done. And if I want to make them into one object, I can use the Pathfinder tool and hit click to unite. And then it gets rid of the separation between them. And then go up here and maybe I'll create another square across the bottom. Select both objects and minus front. And then I've got a flat bottom. So that minus front tool is a really big deal. It's how you'll do a lot of like quick edits, quick cutting things out. But keep in mind that it's only going to chop out one thing at a time. However many objects you've got stacked, it's going to take everything on top of it and minus them all from the bottom object. So that's how you can create some kind of interesting, complicated shapes. So let's get this guy walking down our stairs. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably could do a little bit more. I could use the pen tool and I could draw some, shapes here. Complete these stairs a little bit. Oops, that's not working. All right, complete these stairs a little bit here. So I could take that, Alt drag it and drop it here. Do the same thing on each step. And they're a little bit funky looking. They're not really even, but that's okay. Just enough detail to get the point across. We got like the MC Escher stairs. And I'm using the arrow key to nudge it by 1 pixel so that I don't have to sit there and, try to hand move it like that. Yeah, so it's all about duplicating. You can just kind of create one shape, duplicate it and move it around. You can put some cool things together. So I'll unite those. And then, I think we get the idea that these are stairs. I can probably go in and fill them a little bit more for you if you like. Or how about this? Let me select all of the top steps and I will double click the colors panel and I'll just lighten them. So now we've got the three different colors that tells us it's the different, sizes of the stairs, or the different surfaces of the stairs rather. And I'm sorry, I'm not fitting it more into this picture, but I think you'll really get the idea. All right, now let's see. So we've got about 15 minutes left. The last thing that I want to show you is I want to show you how to create a color palette. Colors can be like the most challenging part of the whole process. A lot of people, they feel like, what are the right colors? Or like, I don't know. This is something that it's like, there's color theory. So I think it scares a lot of people. It makes people think like, this is a decision for someone else. It's such a deeper part of branding. So if you're lucky and you've got a brand guide, you can pull your brand guide up and you can pull your colors into there. But we're going to just assume that we don't have a brand guide. So I'm going to start creating some squares. I'm going to use the marquee tool, the rectangle tool, and shift click and draw a square. Then I'm going to press V and alt click to duplicate it, alt drag to duplicate it. And then I'm going to do the same thing and duplicate it again. And then I'll go ahead and distribute them and make sure I've got them nice and perfectly aligned because, that feels good. And then I can change the color of each one by clicking on this fill color right here, by double clicking on the fill color. But we don't know what colors we want. So I will head over to here. Let me do it this time. No, why do I get this out of my way? All right, so let me do it this way this time so that I don't block out the captions. I apologize for that. All right, so I have another cool website. It's called coolers.co. And I'll drop this in the chat too. All right, howdy, hello, okay. I'll type that in the chat. Coolers.co. Okay, so instead of going to start the generator, which you can actually pull colors from something, I'm gonna go to explore trending palettes. And I like this. This is like as simple as it gets. You just pick palettes that someone else put together. Adobe has a really cool website that you can go to that if you really want to just explore like color theory and like choose a color harmony, triadic or tetradic, and it'll show you all the neat things that you can do with it. I like this. I really just like look at them and like, I don't know, like for some reason, this one just kind of like really stands out, this color palette. So I just like pick something. I just come on here and I pick one that I like and I drop the colors in. So I'll choose this one because it's got some nice contrast. This one probably hits accessibility contrast ratios while, you know, having a multitude of colors of, you know, without being too stark. Cool, thank you, Julia. Yes, the Adobe Color Wheel. So for this website, all you need to do is just click and it copies that 6-digit hex code there. And then we're gonna come into Adobe Illustrator, double click the color and paste it into the hex code area. And boom, it changes our color. So we're gonna do that for 3 more colors. So this is really common if you're just starting the design process. Like if you're ideating, figuring out what you want something to look like, you'll grab a few of these, and setting up a live color palette like this helps you move quickly. So that a really big deal when it comes to designing is reducing the time between thought and execution. So like if you get something like this, you can just very quickly see what the picture looks like while it's that color, because we're just weird creatures, and having like any kind of gap in between it like this, it just messes with our brains. Reference is very strange for us. And you know, like you'll just decide, oh, I don't like it if it takes like 30 or 45 seconds extra to put something together. You spend too much time looking at it. So this is why I like to create live color palettes so I can just quickly update the shapes. So I'll show you now how to quickly change colors across a design. The first thing you can do is, let's say we want to change just the color of her t-shirt. So I'll zoom in a little bit and I want to, this is grouped. So if I try to select the t-shirt, it selects the entire group. One quick trick to bypass that is you can use the direct selection tool, or with the normal selection tool active, you can control click. Again, tons of ways to do anything. So I'm going to press I to activate the eyedropper tool. It's right here on the toolbar, and just click on my color palette, and it pulls the color right in and changes the color of her shirt. Cool. But that's not the only color I want to change, so I'm going to undo it. So let's say I want all the colors that are the same color as this in all of my designs to be this red color. I can control click to select that shirt. I can come up here to select same fill color, and then it selects the laptop and the plant as well. And you'll notice it's selecting this background. It's selecting all these background items as well. So part of this is going to be problem solving. When I see it selecting that, I'm like, why is it doing that? It's not the same color. I have an idea though. So I'll come in here, I'll double click to enter isolation mode. And it turns out that the opacity, that this is the same color with the opacity just set to 0. So I don't want that whole thing to show up. So I'm going to press Control Z to undo that opacity change. It's Command Z if you're on a Mac. I'm going to just delete these objects so that I don't really have to worry about them. Again, too much information in there. I love removing things from images. I love making things simpler. Not that these designs aren't amazing already. The creator of this website is really cool and is constantly updating these. So definitely, if you get a chance, check this website out. Check out Undraw. But anyway, back to design. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the shirt. I'm going to click on select same fill color. I'm going to press the I for the eyedropper tool and select the color. And boom, it changes all of the colors at once. So that's a pretty cool deal. So I'll go ahead and do that for I'll set up kind of a brand across my images. Select same fill color. Let's change these to this one. And then let's just kind of make things coherent. Like I said before, keeping the same shapes and colors. Let's do that for this shirt. Select same fill color and select this shirt. Cool. And one last one to do with this one. Select same fill color. So that grabs those little lines in there too. So you want to make sure that you just get every little thing. And change it to that. And boom. All right. All right, cool. So we've got our graphics. They're ready to go. They're ready to go. They're as ready as they're going to be. So we want to put them into our designs now. So we want to export them. So I'll show you a few ways to do that. And this is one thing I do want to show you a few ways to do because like I said, this is about what works the fastest for you. So the first one is to go to File, Export, Export As. So we're exporting from Illustrator. We get this, it's asking us where we want to put it. Oh boy. All right, I'm gonna take you all through my, horrible folder structure. Okay, so healthy remote work assets.png, and I wanna use .png because that preserves the transparency in the background. So this is the point at which these vectors are gonna get baked into pixels. So I'm gonna choose PNG. If I choose something like, I can choose SVG, I can export these all as new SVGs. That would be, so there are some applications that you actually can use the SVG in. So you want to keep that in mind, that the SVG is actually going to be a very small file size that can be expanded to any size. So they're great for like responsive designs. They can be quicker when they're on a mobile application. And when you have it on a desktop, it'll show you a bigger one and it'll take a little bit longer. So I'll choose PNG because, I don't know where they're going yet. So I'll click use artboards, and that's going to separate everything into those artboards for me. And I can choose a range if I only want some of my artboards. But I'll choose all, and I'll say export. You see here, I get this window. I can choose whether I want the background color to be filled with white or black or left transparent. So I'll choose transparent. I want to make sure that it's high 300 pixels per inch. And don't worry about the anti-aliasing right now. So hit OK. And let me dig these up so that you can see. Okay, cool. So now you see that we've got all our items there. Cool. So there's another way. There's one other way that you can export things. And I mean, this is kind of the jam that I like to do, like if I'm designing, because I'm super lazy. So I'll come in here, say I'm developing my storyline course, and I really need a picture of someone walking. So I jumped over to Illustrator and I drew it up real quick. I'll come to File, Export, Selection. And in here, you have a couple options. You can see the last thing I drew was a sad computer. So for this one, I'll say, taking a walk, and then I can choose the scale. Do I want it to be, 5 times the size that I just drew it in, or I can just choose a specific resolution. We'll go with 2 times for now, it's fine. And I'll hit export asset. And it looks like it dropped it right in. Let me do that again. I think it dropped it into one of my old work locations. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna need to change that. Okay, so drop it in here and export asset. There we go. So now it exports just that asset. And you can do that with a single item. In your storyline course, you just need to export that picture of a moon. Moon, export asset, boom. Now you've got that you can drop straight in. So this is super useful for me. Like I said, again, this is like my favorite thing. Whenever I can communicate through the visuals, I do. And, I've got some really cool visuals that I, put together. Here's the sad computer. This is one of my favorites. So you get to put neat things like this into your designs, into your courses. You could just express yourself a little bit more. And like I said before, we're in a visual culture. So these tools, they are not as difficult as they used to be. And I will say, they used to be a little bit more complicated. They're definitely adding a lot of functionality, simplifying a lot of things, taking things out, and just trying to make it more open for everyone to use. So I would highly recommend just at least playing around, learning how to do this. It's helped me a lot having graphic design skills to bring to the table when I go for contracts. This is something that people have told me time and again that they're happy that they're happy that I can bring into the picture. Sometimes it's just drawing a simple diagram. And you can do it a little bit better in Illustrator than you can in PowerPoint. So just getting that visual language is going to will be a huge help. Yeah, and it looks great on your resume. So I hope that this is, I hope that this is helpful to everyone. I hope that this makes it feel a little more like Illustrator isn't, or graphic design isn't really this like thing that you need to get an art school degree for. I dropped out of art school. I went to art school for a year and left. So I don't know if that tells you anything. Maybe it shows, maybe it's obvious. I don't know. But yeah. And, once you kind of play around a little bit, you get to the point where you can, you just got to learn the tool, and then you can go on YouTube and just say, how do I draw this YouTube flat icon of a computer? And there are so many resources out there. You'll get the Bob Ross experience, where someone will just walk you through designing, here's all the shapes I make. And once you know how to make those shapes, you can basically make anything. And that's it. That's the wrap. I don't have a really cool outro.
Thank you, Chris. Just while we've got a few minutes left, are there any questions anyone has for Chris? If you don't, I will.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Rhonda. I'm glad that you got some value out of it. Please continue to play around with it.
I guess, Chris, while let's see, Kathy's got a question. What do you use for the closed captioning? That would be helpful to know.
Cool. Yeah, I go to Google Slides and I just have nothing here. You can see, I just hit present, captions, and then drop. I take it out of full screen, and then I adjust my screens so that they don't block it. So it's kind of developing storyline and AI for all of your projects. I mean, yeah, not all of my projects. I mean, if I'm doing just like instructional design and slide decks, I'll put it in Google Slides. But yeah, a common workflow is like just storyline. Like, had a really cool project. This sad computer project actually recently was like a really cool, kind of strange, almost like using storyline as if it was like After Effects, because we wanted the LMS export and everything from storyline. So I just kind of would grab these, drop them in, and then do some simple motions in there.
All right. Are there any more questions for Chris from the group? This is your chance.
No questions. Wow. Okay.
I'm sure everyone will have questions. They're going to, take this home, rewatch the video, redo it, and then they're going to have a million questions, Chris. So what should they do if they have questions?
I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to learn how to do this, I would not rewatch an hour video of me speaking. I would go to YouTube and watch a 5-minute video, because you can really learn these things so quickly. YouTube is like the best place to learn. And then of course, Google does that amazing thing now where if you Google like how to change, how to do XYZ, it like takes you straight to the clip in YouTube. Like it pinpoints it to that. A lot of learning how to use this, I learned through osmosis. I just watch designers on YouTube. I watch people like Kel Lauren or Zimri Mayfield, who are kind of just young designers who are, they're just fun to watch, kind of Bob Ross experience. And what you do is you kind of get a sense of the language of what the tools are called. This is the rectangle tool. This is the pen tool, the ellipse tool, and you start to learn like, how do I create a stroke on this? Or how do I cut out a shape from this? And the better you get a sense of the language, you can start to just ask Google questions. And, these tools have been around for decades. So it's like, they're going to be like, they're going to be answered somewhere. Someone along the way was trying to do it. Ooh. Hey, Kara. Welcome. You're just in time.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, another recommendation is, if this is, whether it's, Illustrator or any sort of tool, learning design element thing, just make up a project. Or if you see something and you don't like how it's done, change it yourself, design it yourself. So then that way you get the actual physical practice, and the same as you would if you were using this tool in any sort of work or any sort of environment. So.
Yeah. I mean, here's an awesome thing. It is Christmas right now. So like you could design your own Christmas cards. You can make your own Christmas trees. They can be whatever color you want. You can have pink Christmas trees. So yeah, there's a cool project you could come up with for the holidays, I guess, is designing. And I have created my own Christmas cards. My partner and I do a photo shoot with our cat, and I jazz it up with the happy holidays and print it out.
Love it. Well, thanks, Chris. Thank you everyone for joining us.